What are you saying, YouTube? There's a saying among hustlers, never give game to a lame. And one of my mentors taught me, he said, treat the sucker like mushrooms. In other words, feed them shit and keep them in the dark. Yeah, these guys are the best. Anyway, so today I thought I would discuss some internet folklore for you. And you got to know that hustlers really do hustle other hustlers. You know, it's survival of the fittest. The big fish eat the little fish. Hustlers take on hustlers. I like the Amarillo Slim quote. He said, I don't go looking for a sucker. I look for a champion and I make him a sucker. Well, same thing with top of the food chain, apex predator hustlers. They take on the little hustler. So there's this internet folklore, and I want to discuss it just a little bit. You probably never heard of it. If you did hear of it, I'm going to dismiss it, okay? And you might, even though if you never heard of it, you might come across it, so you're going to know the truth. Now, hustlers call mark cards paper, okay? And even though mark cards can deal with physical markings on the card, it doesn't have to be. So there's something called touch work, and the hustler can just feel the card. In the 80s, the naivete of the United States Playing Card Company. I'll show you how hustlers take advantage. They see an angle, they take it, you understand? United States Playing Card Company is manufacturing B playing cards. It's a common card in the casinos, it's a common card in the underground casinos, right? So you're looking at the 80s, the only legal states to play casino style gambling would be Nevada and New Jersey, right? You got Vegas and Atlantic City. The other states, it's not legal yet. But any of these big cities, just as the mob was running the casinos in Vegas, they're running these underground clubs. And so they're using the B playing card. And you got to understand the mentality of a hustler. Their philosophy is better to have a penny today than a dollar tomorrow. And let's use an example. This video is dealing with Doyle Brunson and Stu Unger. Let's give an example of why it's better to have a penny today than a dollar tomorrow in the mind of a hustler philosophy. And if you look at Doyle, Doyle was running or associated with an online poker room called Doyle's Room. And he got an offer from Paradise Poker for about $250 million, $250 million to sell it. And he wouldn't sell. If someone offers me $250 million, I'm taking it. But he wouldn't take it. He thought that the room was worth more. He thought it would grow even larger. And he thought he was getting ripped off. Well, when you're unregulated and you're taking American customers and you got the Unlawful Internet Gambling Act and you don't know what's going to happen. Department of Justice comes in there, shuts you down. It's the same thing when you're running an illegal gambling operation. It does not matter if you have law enforcement bought and paid for. You do not know how long you're going to be in business. Give an example. Documentation beats conversation. In New York, you had these underground clubs, right? Like the Mayfair Club. And of course, you got to pay off the right people to keep it running. But if higher ups say we're shutting it down, it gets shut down. So in the case of the Mayfair Club, it went above and beyond any law enforcement. Mayor Giuliani says we're cracking down, we're shutting them down, and they got shut down. Okay, so in the hustler world, better a penny today than a dollar tomorrow. So when you start talking about these underground gambling clubs that were around in the 80s in all these major cities and run by underground organized crime, they didn't give you the standard Las Vegas odds. It appeared they did, but they were cheating the players. So I'll give an example of how they were cheating the players. So getting to the rough smooth principle, you have to understand the naivete of the United States Playing Card Company. Because hustlers, when they see an angle, they take it. So the United States Playing Card Company was manufacturing B cards. Today they only come in the cambric finish. But back then they came in the cambric finish, which is rough, and it also came in the smooth finish. Okay, two different finishes. So the hustlers were like, well, why don't we mix the deck, some rough, some smooth, to our advantage. For example, what did Ivy do? Ivy took advantage of a manufacturing process. This card came from New York Casino, a major casino on the Strip, Las Vegas, Nevada. It's owned by MGM Properties, right? Look at this edge. This card was an actual play. If you look on this edge, the cut of the diamond is tiny, okay? Look at it on this side. It's a full diamond, basically, right? It's easy to spot this card. If it's in the shoe like this, you see the full diamond, you know it's big. You see this, the tiny diamond cut at the bottom, you realize it's small. So in the case of Ivy, he had them turn cards, right? He knew the small cards from the big cards. That's all you need to get an advantage in the game of like Baccarat. So as an example, if the card was big, he'd bet player, and if it was small, he'd bet banker. Simple as that, right? That's a manufacturing defect. The reason is the cards all come on one single sheet of paper, and they do a run. Let's say they're going to cut 10,000 decks. They're cut by blades. These blades minutely shift during each deck that's cut, basically. So it becomes off center. So that's why these diamonds get cut off center. So it'd be extremely rare if you could find a perfectly cut card. Uh, and but at the beginning, the first few decks off the run, they might be almost imperceptible to the human eye, right? And unbeknownst, Ivy gets all the credit for the turning of the card or whatever, but it was actually Kelly's son, the Queen of Swords, that was her nickname, that because that's called swords, right? She's edge sorting. Uh, who was the mastermind? She needed somebody who would look not out of place in the casino, someone like Phil Ivey, right? She approached Phil Ivey. They had a mutual friend, and she approached Phil Ivey saying, "I can read the backs of these cards, and we'll get you in there. I can speak Mandarin, or whatever language she was speaking, Mandarin Chinese, I think it was, to the dealer, and get them to turn the card. We'll do it based on superstition, right? You're the high roller. It looks totally normal for Phil Ivey to be, and he was betting up to $200,000 a hand. That's a lot of money. It looks ordinary because sometimes casinos question where the money comes from. If they question where you're getting this money, they believe you're money laundering. They're going to shut you down, right? So Phil Ivey looks perfect. He's a high roller. He loves the action. It looks just perfect for him coming in there. Okay, now getting back to the mob story. So they realize the decks are rough and smooth, right? So how do you sort them? Well, you get two decks, one rough and one smooth, and you just take your X-Acto knife and you go pop pop and you pull out the deck, right? You never touch that little wrap that you unwrap it with, right? You're not touching that. Then once you got it out, you're going to take a knife and go into the edge and pull out the deck from the side. You're going to mark it. You're going to put it back. You're going to glue. You're going to put it back. Glue, glue. This part never been touched. The seal never been touched. You saw the movie Cincinnati Kid. They're smelling the decks. They're smelling for glue. That's what they're smelling for.